Conflict in marriage is normal. In fact, experts go as far as to say it's healthy for our relationships, but knowing how to deal with conflict can sometimes trip couples up. See if any of the following scenarios sound familiar, all right? Say a wife brings up her concerns about being able to pay bills this month because her husband's work has slowed down a little bit. Upon hearing that complaint, he gets mad, starts arguing with her about her spending habits. She fires back, critiquing two of his last purchases. Never happens, right? How about this one? Husband and wife get home from dinner with friends and the wife has gone cold, she's gone quiet. He asks her what's wrong. She says that classic reply, nothing. He pushes harder. She just rolls over and goes to sleep. All right, one more. Mom and dad confront a daughter about how she has been treating one of her siblings. Instead of hearing the complaint, she starts giving examples of how others in the family have said equally worse things to one another. So instead of getting more clarity, you instead get contention. All of these scenarios have one truth in common. How you handle the conflict within families and within relationships is really the key. Coming up next on Studio 5, relationship coach Matt Townsend helps us get to the root of the real problem and manage conflict in a healthier way. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Studio 5. Conflict in relationships is normal. It's how you handle it that really counts. Today we're going to teach you how to clear the smoke out of your relationships and get down to the fire, or in other words, the real issues. Dr. Matt Townsend is here with help and advice on that. So how would you define this smoke? If we talk about clearing the smoke, yeah, what is smoke?
So it happens, and you can see in every one of those scenarios you read before the break, every one of them started with an issue. It always presents as an issue, and then all of a sudden the issue starts to spread. So it went from one spouse talking about the bills to then the other spouse getting frustrated to then them talking about how the one person spends and then the other spends, and then we start arguing about spending, and so it goes from one issue to another.
And the smoke just builds and spreads.
And the smoke is the irritant. So the smoke is anything that irritates us. And when you go to a campfire and the smoke gets in your face, what do you do?
I cough.
You cough. Do you leave or do you stay? And just
I leave.
See, some walk away, right? So whenever the smoke starts to come into the room, some of us want to run. We don't want to be in that smoky room. And some of us just stay there and fan it.
We just muscle through.
We call you ladies. And but statistically, 70% of the time, the ladies will stay and let's have this talk.
Right.
70% of the time, the men just want to get out of there and go breathe.
Yeah.
So we call this smoke because the #1 killer of people in a house fire is smoke. Very few people burn to death. And in the marriage, if we spend too long chasing the smoke and all of the irritants and then fighting and flighting, guess what? We're never going to get down to the real fire. So today we're going to show you how to get to the real fire.
You say it starts by recognizing the signs.
There's always signs.
What are some signs that we could be watching for?
3 signs I look for. In fact, I call them vital signs, but they're very basic things. Negativity. If you see negative emotion going up and up and up, so if it's getting more and more negative, that is a sign you are in the smoke. Your conversation should not get more negative. Your conversation should get more positive. Your conversation should not have more and more misunderstanding. If understanding keeps multiplying and we don't know where we're going anymore, and then eventually if somebody invokes your mother and says, your mother, then all of a sudden you're in the smoke.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have more misunderstanding. And if trust is dropping, it's a sign you're in the smoke. So anytime I see negative emotion going up, misunderstanding or mistrust, I know I'm in the smoke and I got to get down to the fire.
So that scenario that we reviewed before the break kind of spoke to this idea of one-upping, right? Will you do this? Will you do this?
What about
that
this?
One-upping, does that count as smoke?
You know, watch, and you'll see the more we one-up each other and we're kind of combating each other, what would happen to emotion?
It would just skyrocket.
And it's going to get higher and higher because nobody's hearing each other, and so we can't dissipate emotion. So we keep just intensifying it, and then we're not going to trust each other because you're saying my spending's bad. What about yours? So now we're hurting each other, and it's getting more confusing, and we're fighting about everything.
Okay.
So smoke. By the way, it's normal. This is a normal communication pattern. This is how everybody does it. But this is why 50% of marriages end in divorce. So what you do is, first thing, you see the signs. When you see negative emotion, misunderstanding, mistrust, and remember, sometimes when people get emotional, they get angry. And they get loud and mean. Some get quiet and they just stuff it. So think of how your partner gets negative. Are they a stuffer or are they a in-your-face kind of person? Watch that. Then the next thing you got to do is you've got to start to actually pay attention to the fear. Hear the fear.
Now, a lot of people are going to say, hold on, Matt, when I'm in the middle of a conflict and we're fighting and those emotions are escalating, we are yelling, we're angry, we're upset, we're frustrated. Very few would stop to say it's a fearful situation.
Well, the irony of it is why are we even talking about money? Because she actually had a fear that she won't be able to pay the bills. So there's a fear that underlines it. Now, when she brings it to him and he knows we don't have the money, what does it create in him? A fear. So one of the most basic drivers or triggers of all of our smoke would be fear or shame, because I should be making more money for the family, or, you know, lack of safety. I call it my starve stuff, but all my starve stuff goes back to the root of fear of not having enough or fear of not being enough. So inside of any complaint, you can hear there's a basic fear.
So you mentioned the in-law issue, right? The mom getting involved. What's the fear in a situation like that?
The fear of not being adequate. The fear of having somebody else making decisions in your life that's not you. Why would I want my in-laws making my decisions for me? The fear that my wife doesn't trust my opinion.
Raising kids, disagreeing on raising kids.
Disagreeing on raising kids. So I'm afraid I'm not a good parent, and I'm afraid you think I'm not a good parent, or I'm ashamed because I know I'm not a good parent, and you seem to bring it up every 5 minutes. So that makes me afraid, because when will I ever be safe with a wife that constantly brings up my problems?
It really can always boil down to a fear of some sort.
To a fear or a shame issue. And you know why the fear's scary? Because we want to be loved. I want to be loved. And the most basic human need is, if I'm not lovable, I should be afraid, because I will die. Because no one would want me, and if nobody wants me, I'll go live in a little house out in the village and become the Unabomber. So it's scary, but
this just took a scary turn.
If I listen to the fear, so why I love this is because if you see the signs and you're looking for them, you're going to be less reactive. When doctors are checking vital signs in the hospital, they're not freaking out. They're counting your vital signs, and that keeps them calm because they know what to do. So they see the signs, and then when they're listening to the story of what my wife is saying, I try to understand what is her fear. And then the last thing I need to do simply is pour on the love. The antidote to the fear that causes every one of these fights would be love. So how can I just reassure the fear and show her she's safe with me? I love you. I don't always agree with you. I don't agree with everything you're saying, and yet I do see we have a spending problem. I do see we have some money issues, and we need to sit and talk about it. I love you. I'm going to be here for you. Let's figure out a way to talk it out, and you pour on the love, which is going to, you know, douse the fire.
Yeah, it's not that the love pays the bills, but the love gets rid of the smoke.
And once the smoke is gone, and we're down to the real issue of fear, then we can look at each other and say, great, now that we're both feeling fear, and but we know we're safe with each other, now what can we do together to solve the real issue of our fear? And it might be exercise faith, it might be go work harder, it might be get a budget, it might be call our parents. But if we're going to call the parents to get help, let's not do it out of fear. Let's do it because we love each other and it's time to move on and get help.
So we see the signs, we hear the fear, and we pour on the love.
We pour on the love. Now, the love is the antidote to fear, right? So our tendency is we don't pour on love, we pour on more fuel. And instead of pouring on the fuel, we're just going to accept the fact that my wife's afraid and try to calm it down so you don't make me afraid, like two scared cats, and let's just reassure we care for each other, and let's get down to the real issue.
I love this.
It's cute.
I love this. It is. It's
it works. It's darling, and you know what? It saves marriages.
Which is
it saves lives.
Thing. Also saving marriages, saving lives, improving lives is your Life Changer program, which gets at issues just like this.
Best thing on earth I've ever done next to marrying my wife and having 6 children and getting my job at KSL.
Thank you for that, putting us on
my Life Changer, you just sit down every day. It's a daily activity. We send you an email, you watch a video, you answer 5 questions, and out of the 5 questions comes a unique goal from your conscience to live that principle today. And then you go do that assignment and you just live the principle today, and tomorrow you get another one. And we do it for for a month at a time, 6 principles over the month, and over the month you're going to start to master principles like courage and security and trust.
It's the daily improvement.
Go to matttownsend.com. It costs $5.99. I think it's a price of a combo meal.
Nice. Matt, thank you so much.
Thanks, Brooke.
All right, 3 limited edition spring treats worth trying. That is next on Studio 5.
As a Zoom